Hi, thanks for joining us today. We're here for another episode of the Final Percent podcast. I am Dr. Eileen Gallagher. I'm a family practice doctor, and today we have sitting with us Ryan VanDanyew, who is the owner of the Boulder OsteoStrong organization, and we're here to share a little bit about what that can mean for you. So the way that I got introduced to Ryan was earlier this summer. I read the Tony Robbins Life Force book, where it talks a lot about biohacking and ways that you can take better care of yourself. And I came across the informational section on OsteoStrong, and I'm going to let Ryan explain it a little bit more. But I was really curious about how it could benefit me and what it could do for our community and how we could learn a little bit more information about OsteoStrong. So I called in and did an introductory session and learned a little bit about it, and have been able to incorporate it into my weekly routine at helping improve my own health. And so I'd like to have Ryan share a little bit about what OsteoStrong here in Boulder does and OsteoStrong overall. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So can you tell us a little bit about the history of OsteoStrong?
Yeah. So OsteoStrong, the business model itself has been around since 2012. So just crossed our 10-year mark. But in the beginning, it was very slow going because we are creating a new industry, an industry of skeletal strengthening. So unlike anything else out there, really. So you can imagine the challenges in any business. Well, now imagine launching an industry. Slow going in the beginning. The history was based around the inventor of the machines. His name is Dr. John Jaquish. He is a mechanical engineer and a biomechanical engineer and research scientist. And so his mom was diagnosed with osteoporosis. Being a good son, he went out and tried to figure out how can I help her, did all the research, being a research scientist, to find out that there really wasn't a practical way to trigger osteogenesis, which is the building of new bone tissue. The story goes that he put together all sorts of contraptions in his garage trying to figure out a way to rig a system to help little old mom trigger bone growth, and successfully ended up creating one machine at the time that did all the functions that our current system does. But in using the machine, mom was the guinea pig. It worked. She reversed her osteoporosis. She now has the bone health of a 30-year-old.
Super cool.
So that was the birth of the company itself.
Well, and what I will say as a doc, a lot of the medications that we use to reverse osteoporosis have a ton of side effects. People don't like them. They're expensive. You have to take them at least for 3 to 5 years, if not for the rest of your life. And so to have it be that you're doing mechanics to improve your bone health is a way more exciting treatment option than taking a pill every day or once a week that has side effects. Yeah. So tell me about how you got involved with the company.
Yeah, so my story was I was an entrepreneur and was really looking, I was an unfulfilled entrepreneur, looking for something that I could do that would bring purpose to my life. But also bring a health-minded community to Boulder. And my wife and I were deep into the process of trying to figure out what that was. But as you know, Boulder, what could we possibly do that isn't on every corner already? So it was really a divine appointment that I was at a Tony Robbins event. And at the time, he had just partnered with OsteoStrong. This was back in 2018, and I had done all of his programs in my own personal development transition, trying to figure out where I was going to go next in my journey. Saw OsteoStrong, did a little bit of research. I'm a big proponent of following the leader. He's a leader that I follow and I trust. And so when he explained it and when I did some research into it, it made sense. Mm-hmm. And so that was just over 4 years ago. And so here we are now almost 4.5 years later, and love every moment of it.
Super cool.
Yeah.
So tell me, what is OsteoStrong?
Yeah. So, so we're a wellness center that's based around strengthening your skeletal system. Our clients and members see a lot of benefits ranging from increasing bone density to muscle strength, helping to improve balance and posture. Some members are even reversing their osteoporosis and type 2 diabetes, which is really interesting because the way our system works helps to increase muscular density as well, which helps to process blood glucose, so helping lower A1C markers. So
that was actually one of the things I thought was most interesting from reading the book. And when I called, they asked, do you have diabetes or do you have osteoporosis? I said, well, neither really. I just want to improve my overall strength. But with the reversing of diabetes, for a lot of people, they don't know that you can utilize blood sugar in your muscles without having insulin, whereas almost all other processes in the body, you need the insulin.
Right.
Which is why something like this works so great for that.
Yeah.
So I think, we'll just drop some tidbits too about things that people can learn. So kind of explain the benefits of using the system and how that can serve someone.
Yeah. Yeah. So as I mentioned, the benefits are ranging far and wide. I don't know what you can see, but my team likes to call these all the side effects of OsteoStrong. As I mentioned, increasing bone density, physical strength, improving balance and posture, big things that we focus on all the time, but also energy and power. And so these side effects that we call them, it's based around a system that we have here of equipment that is designed to target different quadrants of your skeletal system. And so the concept behind it is very different than anything else out there.
For sure. Having experienced it, absolutely yes.
Yeah, and it's also fascinating because Dave Asprey coined us the ultimate biohack, and the reason being because your sessions only take about 15 minutes one time per week. And that's where this is so different than anything else out there, right? Because your goal is to compress your bones. And when you compress your bones with enough force, you activate the process of osteogenesis. And what separates us and why we're so different than anything else is because our focus is on your skeletal system. And the concept that it takes to activate bone growth in your skeletal system does require more force than really is almost possible by most people to be able to push. So there's a study that was conducted in 2012. It wasn't done by our company. It was conducted that showed what is the threshold that it takes to activate growth in the hip, because there's so much concern around breaking a hip.
Yep.
So what they found was there was a minimum threshold of 4.2 multiples of your body weight. So think about that for a minute. Think about 4.2 multiples of your body weight, and then imagine how you would lift that. It's really hard to wrap your mind around. So, the inventor...
Especially safely.
Safely, right, exactly, right? And so the inventor of the machines actually spent a lot of time studying gymnastics because pound for pound, gymnasts actually have some of the highest levels of bone density of any athlete on the planet, which is fascinating. They also have one of the earliest retirement ages too because of the same concept, right? So you think of that gymnast and you think of them spinning off that high bar and coming down and sticking that landing and compressing their entire body they can compress up to 15 multiples of body weight just in that one compression. Now, also think about how long that takes. It's a moment.
Seconds, yeah.
It's impact, right? And so in studying that, the inventor of the machines was saying, okay, so how can I emulate this process? And so that's when he designed these machines. He did so in a way that he said, okay, with each quadrant, there's 4 different machines to target each quadrant. How can we apply pressure, emulating the impact of what a gymnast would do to each area of the skeletal system where you're in control the whole time, right? So you're pushing how much weight you're comfortable pushing, but nothing's moving. And in doing so, your bones are actually bending. With that, you're able to push a tremendous amount of force, and our machines have live biofeedback on them, showing you how much force you're pushing at any given time. And as you've seen Dr. Eileen enough to know how strong she is, she pushes a tremendous amount of weight on these machines, beast mode. So in doing so, it activates this process called osteogenesis, where there's very few things out there, because I don't know about you, but I'm not getting on a high bar and jumping off anytime soon.
I'm not going to be doing any of the, what is the bar that people do too, where they run and do flips and do all the land. I'm like, thanks. I would like to avoid concussions.
Yeah, right. So me there.
This is a lot safer.
Right, of course. And that's how it's designed. That's how we can work with our oldest member was 93 years old.
That's what I was going to say with the population. You can go from one end of the spectrum to the other, but for the older population, the machines keep it so that it's safe for them.
Right. Yep. And we can talk about that a little bit later. And but the idea behind this is if you're not going to put 500 pounds on a bar and squat it, or you're not going to go out and do some crazy gymnastics stuff, there's very few ways out there to be able to compress your bones with enough force to do so. And that's where Tony realized that early on in the company, right? And realized that the company needed help once he got introduced to the company. That we needed help to get out there to the public. And so when Tony came on, he owns half the 49% of OsteoStrong, and he did so because he saw the tremendous benefits that it was having, not only for himself, but for everybody that was using it. And so you think about someone like Tony, who is literally...
a little influential.
Not only influential, but is driven by the final percent. Right? His life is like... so disciplined to what can he do to earn that final percent, and that's what made him who he is. And then to share it with other people. And then to share it with other people, yeah.
So we talked a little bit about how it's different from a gym, I think mostly because there's the set of machines and you're not going to be doing independent lifting, but do you want to expand on that more, or do you feel like we kind of addressed that already?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line is our targeted focus is skeletal strengthening, right? And gym is, you got everything from cardio to muscular. I mean, I could talk a little bit about, so the concept here that this entire system is based around is called osteogenic loading. So you're not going to the gym to do your osteogenic loading, right? You're lifting and you're lifting weights and you're building stronger muscles and, stronger heart and everything in between. But we're a niche, right? And we're different than everything else out there, but just like, yoga and Pilates and, working out and bar, and these are all their own unique little scenarios. And so OsteoStrong fulfills a niche, and the niche is foundational strength, skeletal strength, and also muscular strength. So, like you said, you weren't coming in here for type 2 diabetes or osteoporosis. You were coming in here for physical strength. So Tonys of the world, we work with a lot of elite athletes, specifically in Boulder, triathletes, and helping them get the edge. That 1%, that final percent. One of our members recently at the second to last Kona, which is the World Championship Ironman race, one of our members took second place. And he broke the American record time on the course.
Super cool.
Super cool, right? Because he's as elite as you can get. He's actually been called the fittest man in the country. And so
in the U.S.?
In the U.S.,
That's
because
fun.
he's the Ironman, fastest runner in America.
Yeah.
He came back here and he gave OsteoStrong the credit. I said, I'm like you, right? Get the camera out because we are going to capture this. And so we brought the team in, the videography team, and he shot the video. And he said straight up, it's the only thing he changed in his training. And that's what gave him that edge.
Well, and you wonder, too, if it's not just the running part, because he's the fastest runner, but with the swimming, the upper body strength that you get from doing the machines, and then also for the biking, the lower body strength. So the combination of all of those probably helped him up his game just a little bit in each of the elements, which if you carve off a few minutes in each element of the race, it makes all the difference.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, power. That's what he kept saying. Yeah. Power is the difference, and that's what gave him the edge to break the record time.
Awesome. So your slogan, the ultimate biohack, do you want to talk a little bit about that and who shared that with you?
Yeah. So I do think it's fascinating in the beginning of all this happening. So Dave Asprey, the CEO and inventor of Bulletproof Coffee, he early on, because he's the godfather of biohacking is what he's been called, found out about this system and something that would give this many results in, we say 15 minutes because a typical session takes 15 minutes, but the actual work you're doing on the machines is about 15 seconds per machine, as you know. And
15 seconds to 30, 40 seconds, it's not a whole lot,
Yeah.
for sure. I think that's one of the other ways that it's super different from a gym,
right.
is if you're spending, less than 5 minutes actually on the machines,
Yeah.
that's a lot less time, energy, and effort. And so I think that's one of the things that Dave talks so much about, Dave Asprey, is how do you get maximal results with minimal effort? Like his new book that just came out, he talks about, your meat OS and wanting to be lazy. And so to do things that are more efficient.
Right.
And so I think OsteoStrong is something that really is efficient for people to accomplish the work.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I can't tell you how many people come in here and with that story, I don't want to go to the gym for 5 hours a week and, an hour a day and shower. And listen, this doesn't replace the gym. And I'm not saying that it does. It's just different. It's another way of achieving results. But yeah, like Dave said, like you said, maximum benefit with minimum time and effort. And
it can augment a lot of the other things that you're already doing.
Of course, right. Yeah. And so he found out about it and he got one of our original prototype machines and it lives in his biohacking lab.
So Upgrade Labs?
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah.
So the other thing that we didn't really talk about is part of the system, and maybe when in one of the other things you'll talk about it, but at the beginning and the end, typically you get on the vibration plate. And so in his books, he talks a lot about the 30 hertz of vibration. You and I didn't talk about this ahead of time. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
And how that augments the kind of workout balance, et cetera?
Yeah. Yeah, and Dave sells whole body vibration plates, and a lot of people do, and so we integrate it into our system because what a whole body vibration plate does is it just optimizes everything that you do on the plate. And so whether you're working on balance or strengthening or posture or whatever you do on a whole body vibration plate, your body integrates more of what you're doing.
Right.
Because of that 30 hertz, it's activating your cells to vibrate 30 times a second. When your cells are vibrating 30 times a second, it turns them on. It activates the mitochondria and the ATP, but also there's a lot of benefits that come from a whole body vibration plate. So we utilize it before our sessions and after our sessions. Before our sessions, we do routines just to get the body moving, body flowing. We call it activating. And then after, we call it more of an integration. So we're integrating what we just did, and everything that you just did gets integrated while on that plate. So it's just another biohack, out there. And the more biohacks you can integrate into your life at any given time, the more benefits you get.
For sure.
So
could you share who your ideal clients are? I mean, we kind of talked or touched on it a little bit with a lot of the examples, but if you want to kind of go through who would benefit most from it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the obvious answer is anyone with concerns of bone density, which is why our primary demographic is women over the age of 50. So that said, whether it's because of a specific concern, like a DEXA scan with lower bone density results, or genetics, right? You've seen it in your line. I've witnessed this in my my family's lineage through my mom's line, and so it's something that you can get in front of, right? By starting the process now. Here's the reality: we're all human. I think everyone that's watching is human. We're not going to go down that road. So that said, after the age of 30, the natural aging process is to lose 1% to 2% bone density per year.
And some muscle mass.
And muscle mass, right? And it's interesting that you bring that up because as we age, our central nervous system actually is creating the equilibrium inside our body, right? And so our central nervous system is very smart to recognize that if our bones are getting weaker, then our muscles aren't going to be getting stronger because your body can only sustain the muscle mass that your bones can handle.
So that you don't break your bones.
So that you don't break your bones. Very smart. So with that said, after the age of 30, we're losing 1% to 2% bone mass per year, more for women than men, and also more during like menopause, premenopause, and more if you're dealing with other outside issues like chemotherapy or radiation, other things that can pull from the bone mass. So everyone that's aging is losing bone until you turn that around.
Right.
So in that arena, anyone's a good client that's over the age of 30 or is under 30 that wants to get an edge against their competition. Now, if you're over that and you already have these bone mass concerns, of course, we can help because this is about bone quality as much as bone quantity, right? So this is such an important conversation of who can benefit from bone quality, right? And this is, ranging from, like we said, some of the most elite athletes in the world, bodybuilders, anyone that's hit a plateau in working out. Well, the plateau, if you think about that, your muscles are getting stronger, but then they hit that ceiling of what your bones can handle. So how do you break through a plateau?
Or what your bones think they can handle.
Or what their bones think they can handle, right? How do you break through the plateau? You build more bone mass.
Engage more stress.
Engage more stress. So yeah, I mean, really just about everyone, but it depends on what your goals are. And that's something that we're always focused on. Doesn't matter who's in here, everyone's goals are different.
Right.
And so we're really focused on
meeting them where they're at,
Yep.
like what they're coming in with the intentions of achieving.
Yep. Exactly. And that's how we can work with someone as strong and fit as yourself, all the way to our, 93-year-old member that, is a rock star.
Just needs a little leg up.
So.
So tell me a little bit, we talked a little bit about the bone density scan, and then you were talking a little bit about the quality of bone versus quantity of bone. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So bone quality versus bone quantity. It's something that I think this conversation should be the primary conversation that people have when talking about bone. Because what's happening, and the countless conversations that we've had on these couches with members and clients. Or
members, or people that might become a member.
Right, yeah.
With lots of questions about how can this benefit me.
Yeah. They come here often because they've got the DEXA scan. And the DEXA scan is the gold standard for how to measure bone mass. Doctor said, you have an issue with your bone density, osteopenia, which is the precursor to osteoporosis, or osteoporosis, and here's your options. Do weight-bearing exercise, and here's the pills that you can take. And like you started talking about with the pills, there's a lot of side effects that come with them, and there's a lot of people that are opposed to that.
Well, some people end up on injections or like longer term meds, and then also obviously supplementation with vitamin D and calcium, and how beneficial is that? I mean, we can go down lots of rabbit holes, but let's kind of focus on the types of bone health. And
we're very clear that we don't take a position on the drugs, on the pharmaceutical industry, on the drugs. This is personal sovereignty. Everybody has to do what they're most comfortable with for the outcome of their future. And so with that said, we can support everybody, whether you're, fresh from the doctor with a DEXA scan of, -4, of a reading on your DEXA, all the way to you don't want to take the drugs, or you want to take the drugs, or whatever it is. We're just another tool in the tool belt to help with that. Now, the challenge that comes in with the DEXA scan is that, one, a lot of people are aware, it's pretty common knowledge that there's a lot of inaccuracy with the DEXA scan. There's papers written about it. There's published articles about it. So people know that you should go to the same facility on the same machine, and ideally with the same practitioner.
Right.
Even under those circumstances, it's still all based around the bounding box.
Well, it's sort of like body fat percentage. When you do the calipers, it's the skill of the person doing the test a little bit.
Right.
And also, machines vary from machine to machine for the bone densitometry. So,
and human error, because where are you putting that bounding box to shoot the hip? Is it the same spot that you had it a year or 2 years ago? And so even if it's exactly the same, there's studies that show there can be a 5% variance in that. Now, I can't tell you how many conversations we've had where someone's had an increase by 5% in their bone mass and they're celebrating. And they've had a decrease by 5%, and they are bummed. Devastated.
More than bummed,
devastated. Yeah. And then the doctor comes with the story of how this can play out into their future, and it comes with a lot of fear. And that is crushing, right, to see someone in that devastation state. Right. And so we really focus on the hope. And the hope comes with, this is just a number. This is a scan based on a comparison to a group of 30-ish-year-old women. So the DEXA scan compares your results to women in their 30s. Now, should a 70, 80, 90-year-old be compared to 30-year-olds in the standard deviation of where they fall on the scale of bone density? You know,
well, I mean, it's to your point earlier of we're all human beings. I mean, human beings used to live till they were 40, 45, and now we have humans living till, 90, 100, 110.
Right.
And Dave Asprey wants to be 183. But that having a more robust bone density, if you will, in order to age gracefully so that you don't have falls and have complications as a result, is important. And what's the right answer of what your bone density should be when you're 70, 80, or 90?
Right. Yeah, because this is all new because the DEXA scan didn't come out until 1994.
When people didn't live as long. So it's a combination of both.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just an interesting piece that I like to stress because of the other side of it, right? A lot of people don't know about the other side of this to question what the gold standard is. And, the hardest part for me in this conversation, quite honestly, is I don't have another answer for you. There's blood tests out there that are great, but it's new and I can't say it's new. I don't know how old they are, but their doctors aren't recommending it. It's not the standard.
They're not covered by your insurance.
Right. Yeah. And so we're going off of this, and this just comes full circle back around to educate yourself. Know what you're getting into, know what the best choices are for you. And then from there, bone quality. So what the DEXA doesn't measure is your bone strength, which I think is really interesting. And so something like OsteoStrong, you're coming in and you're focused on hitting these compression points with loading your bones to activate the growth. Now what you're doing, I'm gonna take a little sidetrack of kind of what you're doing inside the body by doing this to focus on this bone quality piece, which is you're activating osteoblasts. Okay, now I'm going to get sciencey with you because I know you like to speak the science language.
Well,
okay?
I have a good trick for how to remember the names of, so the osteoblasts are for building bone and the osteoclasts are for chewing up bone.
All right.
And so that's how we learned it in med school.
All right.
But go ahead.
Yeah.
So with osteoblasts, you're activating those to build bone.
Yeah. Yeah. And so here's the thing. I'm not a doctor or a scientist, so
understand it.
I'll speak in my visual. Right. So it's like the construction site. Bones are constantly remodeling. So imagine you're remodeling, you're on a job site. There's your builders, right, that are going out, they're building your remodel, they're building the bone. And then there's the cleanup crew, because with every job site, there's a bunch of waste that comes with it. So as your bones
the nails end up on the ground, the sawdust.
Totally, right, you're right. So now this is how, I can talk to the non-scientific people.
Which is great.
So you've got the bone remodeling happening. Now, here's the thing. After that 30, the osteoblasts slow down, right? Up to 30, they're working hard in conjunction with the osteoclasts because the osteoclasts are the cleanup crew. So after that, you're on this steady decline because the osteoclasts are still doing their job. They're cleaning up the old dead and decaying bone, but the osteoblasts are not building new healthy bone on top of it as fast, right? And so now you're compressing your bone with this 4.2 multiples of body weight or more. You're activating osteogenesis. You're reinvigorating. You're activating the osteoblasts to get back to work. So now they're laying down new healthy bone matrix and they're building from the inside out. This is what the pharmaceuticals are not doing, right? So now you're coming back to the mechanics of being able to actually trigger this process within your own body. Now, and you're doing it naturally and you're doing it safely. So you're building new healthy bone tissue and the osteoclasts are cleaning up the old bone mass. And so now you're in equilibrium again, rebuilding the bone that's been lost from 30 till now. So bone quality is, at the end of the day, what matters for the majority of the population that's concerned about their bone scans and osteoporosis. If we get down to the bottom line of it, they don't want to break a bone.
Absolutely, yes.
Right? Because
from
breaking
an
a bone,
outstretched hand fall or slip and fall, and especially here in Colorado on the snow and ice.
Yeah, black ice. I mean, you name it. And we've all fallen, and we have no idea when we're going to fall. And especially, out here, everybody's mountain biking and skiing and climbing and hiking and doing all the things.
Keeping active.
And so when you fall, you don't want to break. So regardless of what a DEXA scan says, you want to be able to resist that impact. And that's where the bone quality piece comes from. When you compress the bone, you're bending the bone. You're training it on how to respond when
stressors.
that happens.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so bone, that's what I say all day. Bone quality over bone quantity.
Right.
Too many variables in the bone quantity piece.
Well,
So,
and it's a combination of both. By doing this, you get both quality and quantity. So
Totally.
it's a win-win.
totally, yeah.
So I think the kind of there are two other things. So recommendations on other things to help strengthen skeletal muscle.
Yeah. So this is good because I like to look at this through the bone mass piece and the osteogenesis piece through a holistic perspective, right? Because it's not just come in to an OsteoStrong and activate bone growth. There's a lot of legs to the stool. Nutrition is a huge one. And it's not just what you're putting in your body, because there's lots of evidence to show that that the food that you eat feeds the bone, right? Protein specifically, collagen, but also a healthy rounded diet, including, minerals and
calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, vitamin D, vitamin K.
Yep. In the right dosages.
Right, and in the right kinds that are bioavailable.
Yeah, and that was the second leg of the stool that I was going to talk about. But, as much as it's as important as what you're putting in your body, it's also what not to put in your body. The stressors, the sodas and the high sugar content, things that deplete bone mass. Cigarettes, unfortunately, smoking is a big one as well. So there's the nutritional piece, there's the supplementational piece, right? Because we're only going to get so much of our minerals and nutrients from food, even if you're eating the perfect diet. So increasing supplementation, specifically D3K2, ideally paired together, so you're getting them at the same time to be able to support one another. Calcium, and again, the bioavailability of them. You drop that word, bioavailability, and you can take supplements all day long. And I always say the best supplements are the ones that your body's going to absorb,
right?
And the ones you're actually going to take. Because there's that piece of it too. We all have bottles in our cabinets that are sitting there of supplements that we're probably not taking. So.
Right. And so that's one thing I want to offer too, is if people have questions about supplements or things that you want to take, or if yours are the right kind or not the right kind, please feel free to reach out to me on the Facebook page or in any way, shape, or form, and I can chat with you about what you're doing. But the bioavailability and the quality, I mean, this is different, but I was talking to my dad about magnesium, and he's taking a magnesium that's less bioavailable. I'm like, anything magnesium with an 8 at the end is better, because he's taking magnesium oxide. And I was like, yeah, that's the least bioavailable. Don't waste your money on it. And he's like, oh, I had no idea. I said, well, because people don't educate you. That's the thing with supplements, is there's a lot less information about what are the best ones.
And there's a million out there.
Yes.
And everybody's got their opinion.
And a lot of the companies are not as good as others.
Yeah.
Because it's not FDA regulated
of course.
Medications are.
Yeah. But I will touch on one other thing there. So a great partnership that OsteoStrong just started in focusing on the bone density piece is with AlgaeCal.
Oh, yeah. I read a lot about that from your pamphlet or whatever.
Yeah. And so, what's fascinating to me about AlgaeCal is they're a supplement company, and they guarantee results,
which is unusual.
Is there another supplement company out there that guarantees? I don't know of one either. So
they have a money back guarantee.
Money back guarantee,
right?
And they do so because they've proven through human studies and trials that their supplements work, and the bioavailability piece, because they derive their calcium from algae. As opposed to a lot of algae, calciums come from like rocks or shells, and our human, as far as I know, in the history of humanity, I don't think we're eating rocks or oyster shells. So, and so for them to guarantee results is very impressive. And that's DEXA scan results.
Yeah.
Positive improvements in your DEXA scan.
Right.
And so, so if anybody's interested in AlgaeCal specifically, reach out to an OsteoStrong and we can educate them more. And AlgaeCal actually set up an entire support team for anybody coming through OsteoStrong to educate them on their products and how they work and any concerns that people might have with them. But pretty incredible company. 100% committed to helping people with bone density. So it was a great partnership for us, because that's our wheelhouse as well.
Super cool. So how could someone get set up to come into an OsteoStrong, or what would you recommend for people that are interested? And then maybe also how many OsteoStrongs are there
Yeah.
and where all are they located? Because some people will be close to one. Because we have people obviously watching this that are in Colorado, which there's several in Colorado, but there's other places where they aren't as much. But share what you can about how we get involved in the OsteoStrong Boulder. I already am, but other people.
So I can speak for OsteoStrong Boulder, but as a whole, I would tell you, let me backtrack. There's about 150 centers worldwide, primarily in the United States. So I can promise you that they will all offer you a complimentary session. So if you just contact them, call them, reach out, tell them you heard about them through a podcast and you'd like to come in and check it out. They'll give you the opportunity to sign up for an intro, which what we do at the intros is we do a wellness assessment, a brief education, give you the opportunity to actually experience the machines for yourself, and then you can decide if you want to continue with a membership from there. Some centers, as a caveat, are doing that virtually, so it'd be more of a phone call. But reach out to your local center and connect with them and ask them how you can get in to experience it. For here in Boulder, I'll speak to anyone that's local or wants to come in here. I'm going to piggyback on Tony's book. You don't need to read Tony's book to get the benefit to come in here, but Tony offered a free month for coming in and trying out OsteoStrong to fall in love with it and see if it's a right fit for you. So I guess, why don't I just say, if you're outside of Boulder, just tell them you read the book. And then tell them that you read that you got a free month through Tony, and now I just got you a free month through Tony, and you don't have to read the book. So
although
there you
I would
go.
recommend read the book because it's super interesting. There's a ton of stuff in there. It's a really dense book. Yeah,
definitely read the book as well and get into an OsteoStrong and give it a try and see if it's a good fit for you. So that's the offer on the table.
Super cool.
Yeah.
So I think what we're going to do is thank you so much for sharing your time today and for educating us more about OsteoStrong. We have a lot of members who are excited about working on biohacking and improving their overall long-term health and vitality. We've actually started an arm of the Final Percent, which is the Final Percent of Health, which is TFP Vitality. So we're really our TFP Life. So we're looking at how to improve long-term overall vitality. And so all of these things that can help really people support their long-term health and well-being are things that we want to share with our community. So we really appreciate your expertise and sharing it with the community today. So thanks for joining us. But thank you so much for sharing your expertise and spending some time with us today. And thanks everyone for joining for another episode of the Final Percent podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Final percent.